What is going on, everybody? It is Fitz and the E30 back here with another video. Now today we're going to be tossing in the passenger side coilovers. I already did the driver's side, so I have somewhat of a clue as to what I'm doing. And if you guys have not watched the Condor Speed Shop engine and transmission mount / riser video, go watch that. That went up Wednesday. And before we start this video, merch is live today. So if you guys want to cop a shirt, if you guys want to get a sticker, be sure to go down in the description below and go check out getmoonstruck.com. Without further ado, boys, let's get right into today's video. Alright guys, and with the car in the air, with the wheels off, we're going to start by removing the shock bolt while everything is still together. Right here, this is going to be a 17mm bolt. Taking the impact, and we're just going to zap it off. This is going to save us from having to use a spring compressor or even need one in the future. Now with our front spindle being supported by the jack, we can go ahead and move up top and take off our 3 mounting nuts. All of these are going to be a 13mm. Got the one that jumped away. Now since I don't need this old spring, we're just going to go ahead and cut it out and make our lives a lot easier putting in the new one. Now with the spring all the way out, we can pull out the top hat and the top hat mount. We're going to pull out this whole spindle outside of the fender well. Before taking the spindle out of the wheel well, we are going to disconnect these little ABS line, sensor line wires. And you just want it to be loose so that they don't rip or tear when we pull the spindle out. You can pull off all this old stuff because we're not going to need it. On to the next part. Next, we have to remove the shock locking collar. This can be extremely difficult, to be honest with you guys. I am absolutely coating it in freeze off or any other lubricant, rust penetrant. You can, because there are threads right here. If you guys have the right tool for this nut here, it makes it 10 times easier. I have a pair of these pliers and 2 of my jack handles to provide plenty of leverage to unscrew this thing. We should be good here after we've broken it loose. Alright, this side was much easier than the other side, and we can go ahead now and just screw this out. After this little piece is out, we can go ahead and pull out the shock. Completely blown, covered in oil. Let's go get the new stuff ready to put in. Alright, so right here we have our new shock. If you guys have not watched the unboxing video that went live Monday of this week, go check it out to see these coils more in depth. But anyways, this piece that comes on here we are not going to need. That's if you wanted to weld in these coilovers. This would be your new bottom mount for your shock. We are just replacing the shock. You can go ahead and slide it right back in the spindle. So this right here is how your locking collar is going to come out of the box. When I first tried installing this on the other side, I didn't know, and this is very, very important, you have to flip this. So right here, this is our little lock for the shock, little shock lock. You have to actually flip this when you put it onto the shock. So it comes like that, flip it, put it on like that. For the sake of putting on our shock lock, we're going to leave it here on the bottom. We're going to go ahead and screw it in using the locking collar that comes with the coilover set. This can get very difficult. The other side didn't go all the way down. We're just going to get this as far down into our spindle as we can. Once again, if you have the right size wrench for this, it makes it 10 times easier. But putting it in, we are just going to use our pliers. This is as now tight as I can get it, as far down in the spindle as I can get it. Time to put on our locking collar. Now, for my case, I'm not using the rings at all. We're just putting the spring in over the spindle, sandwiched by the top of the mount. Now it's time to put on our front spring. Honestly, I don't know if it's gonna sit like this or like this, but what makes the most sense in my head, and this could be very wrong, is the big part of the spring fits nice in the top of our mount. So that's how we're gonna set it on our coilover. Just like on my E90, our springs are going to be dangling, but when the car's on the ground, everything will be compressed and we shouldn't have any issues. Is this adjustable? No. Is this going to ride that well? Probably not. Are we going to be low? Absolutely yes. Let's get the rest of this thing together and move on to the back. So with just our spring on here, we're going to put the washer back on. We're going to put the spring holder on top of that, and then the mount on top of that. We're going to take our new nut that comes with the coilovers and just start it by hand, and then we'll be able to tighten it down here in just a second. Now, as you're tightening this top nut, it will get to a point where it starts to spin the shock down here as well. What I'm doing to prevent this is vice grips. Alright, with our new coilover in, it is ready to go back in. This is the hardest part. Spring compressors would be very useful for this. You have to finagle everything back under the fender. This is why I'm lazy. I didn't want to take out the arms, so we're just going to do it this way. It works fine on the other side. It may take you guys a minute, but just keep going. I promise it'll fit right under to go up to connect the top 3 bolts. Also, while I'm thinking about it, if you guys are installing lowering springs or coilovers like this, we may not even need this top piece. We might just need the little shock locking collar. But anyways, let's put this thing back in the car. Alright, this side a little bit harder for whatever reason. So we disassembled it, got the shock only in there, and now we're going to put these pieces back on the shock while it's in the strut tower so that we have enough room to put these on there and the spindle fits in just fine. Alright, so as you guys can see, the spring holder, and the top hat are all in here. All we have to do left, jack up the spindle from the bottom, and then tighten that nut onto the top, and we'll be done in the front. With our vice grips held on to the shock down below, we can now tighten the top of it and finish up the front coilover installation. Now that everything is assembled and ready to go in the front, all we have to do is put back our little brake line, and then we're headed to the back. With the car being fully supported by the wheel and the jack, this is how the front fitment looks. We're definitely going to need to dial it in, whether that's trimming the springs, making sure everything up top is fine, and going from there. But right now, guys, let's get to the back and start on the rear install. Alright guys, moving on to the rear, the first thing that we're going to do is support all the suspension with the jack. Next, if you guys have a soft top, it'll be right under your soft top cover. And you guys can see we're going to remove the nut on the top of the shock and then the 2 shock mounts while everything is supported. From there, we're going to take the 19 off the bottom, and then our shock is going to come out. We got the top of the shock bolt, which is a 19. Next, we're going to take off the 2 shock mount bolts, which are 13s, just like the front. Alright, 1 in a row. And the second one is out. We can now go ahead and lower the jack and then take off the 19 on the back of the shock. With our shock out, we are going to be reusing this mount. If yours are blown, get new ones, or go ahead and have them ready before you install your new shocks. Putting together our new shock, we're going to put the mount on. You're going to put the little washer here, and then you will put the nut on top of that. We're going to tighten this down the same way we did in the front. Vice grips on the shock, 19 or 17 on the top. Before putting in our newly assembled shock, we have to take that spring out. You guys guessed it, we're cutting it, it's coming out. Alright boys, now that the suspension is fully taken apart, welcome to Fitz Chop Shop. Once again, we're just going to run cut stock springs in the rear for right now. We can adjust these or cut the orange Maxpeedingrod springs in the future. I also have the front springs if we need to do some more adjusting, but I tested this on the other side, so we're just going to run one of these each. It should look pretty damn good. We're going to toss the spring in, put the shock back in, and then get this baby on the ground. Let's do it. Alright boys, now that the spring is in, we can go ahead and put the bottom of our shock on here with the 19mm, jack it up, put in the top 2 bolts, and we will be done. Let's do it. Now we're gonna pop our 213s on top. All right, y'all, I wanted to give you a little preview of the rear, what it's gonna look like on the ground. Here you go. We're gonna waste no time at all putting this thing back on the ground and taking it out, my fully registered and insured E30. So let's get this thing on the ground. I'll see you guys outside the garage. All right, boys, I have worked my absolute ass off over the last 4 or 5 nights, before work, after work. Today was my one day off. It is time that I show you the E30 with the new mounts and absolutely on its nuts. This is just first look. We can dial in the fitment later. Oh my God, this thing looks so good. You ready? Are you guys ready? Here it is. Oh my God, look at this little slab, dude. Oh my God, this is definitely my favorite corner. Definitely the closest to where we want it. That front is okay, considering we have to turn. And then coming around to this side, pretty close here in the rear, and then this front is a little off. I also have to fill up this tire really fast, and then we will take it out, boys. But oh my God, what do you guys think? What do you guys think? Hours and hours and hours of hard work to get here. Lots of rust, lots of broken things. Nothing, absolutely nothing went right. Maybe the transmission mounts, but coilover wise and then engine mount wise, it was such a struggle to get everything in. So it is a relief, to say the least, to have this thing on the ground. Enough talking, boys. Let's take this thing out. All right, well, for those rollers you guys just saw, you can thank Emmy. Say hello. But this is where we are at with the E30. Super happy with every corner except this one. I gotta figure out if the spring is sitting in there correctly, and if so, why that one's higher. This front is fine, and then both the rears are absolutely baller for 15s. So anyways, guys, this has been Fitz Miller, the E30, in a long couple days. Be sure you guys are subscribing, and after this video, right down below, go grab yourself a t-shirt, go grab yourself a Get Moonstruck sticker, support the build, support me and the channel, and I will do my best, do my absolute best to continue to give you guys lots and lots of good content. So anyways, guys, super stoked on how this thing came out. This has been Fitz Miller, the E30, and Emmy. We'll see you guys in the next one.